What is going on, guys? This is obviously Jordan here, back in another video, and today, usually I say I have like something cool in this corner. I have this bottle here, and the reason why I've got a metal one instead of this plastic one that I had last time is because social media. I saw that video from a Greenpeace, I think, that they put like 625 kg of plastic outside of Downing Street because of the UK government that's just throwing away this amount of plastic every 30 seconds. And I'm like, you know what? Social media kind of made me realise that I'm not the most sustainable, so let me be a bit more sustainable. As we talk today about, you guessed it, social media. So, social media is something that's very, very interesting because I think a lot of us as young people, for the first time ever as a generation, I guess, we experience a lot of things virtually, through a screen nowadays, instead of like out in the real world. That's not literally the case with all young people. I think that's an exaggeration. Older people kind of just perpetuate this idea that our kids are always online. Like, we obviously do go outside. Where do you think these pictures come from? But we do go outside. But a lot of what we experience and a lot of the way we interact with social media has in many ways changed the way we experience things in real life. If anything, like back in the day, if there's a fight, you get involved. And now if there's a fight, you kind of record it and scream "World Star." Like, the world's changed a little bit, which I'm not necessarily with or against. It just is the way it is. But one thing that's always puzzled me, if anything, has been the way we react to seeing that. The way we react to the kids on social media. Oh, social media it's bad. Kids are, just recording everything. Da 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 da. Well, social media is good because it's connecting people and blah blah blah. And there's a lot of things going on. So I think today, for this video, for this opinion corner challenge, whatever that I'm doing, let's actually unpack some of that and try to understand whether or not, at least in my opinion, again, this is my opinion corner. If you have your own hot takes and opinions, find an opinion corner down below in the comments and let me know what you think. But for the sake of this video, there's going to be no facts or data or analysis. This is just my thoughts. This is just critical analysis based on Jordan's perspective. So yeah, let's unpack social media and try to determine whether or not it's good or bad. And if it is either good or bad, let's try to understand like what the actual problem or benefit is, if anything. So yeah, I've got a bunch of stuff written down here. In my notes, I started off with, these bullet points are really, really bad this time. But then I wrote down the pros first, then the cons. But what I'm going to do, in light of the last week and a half, 2 weeks, whatever, since the Euros ended, we're going to start talking about the cons. Because the way people have reacted to Rashford, Sancho and Saka in the comments and their DMs, whatever, like, it's ridiculous. And the whole anonymity, being anonymous, not knowing who people are, being untraceable, can't hold them accountable. That's going to be con number one. We're going to talk about the whole idea of just being anonymous, and that for the sake of this video, it's going to be classified as a con. I understand that in many ways that's a positive. It's a good thing. It can be seen as a good thing, at least, to be anonymous online, because it means you can reinvent yourself. It means you can avoid being criticized or not criticized, because criticism is not necessarily a bad thing, but it's like if you're someone that's bullied, you don't want to be on socials and literally be harassed all the time. It can be valuable to like hide that, to have some sort of screen between you and the screen. So there are pros to it, but for the sake of this video, we're going to classify anonymity as a con, because it's like, because of racism, basically. And I don't like the idea of, I'm not necessarily for or against this idea of having passport identification. I do think it's important to some extent to identify who people are online, so you can hold them accountable for their actions. But I don't necessarily know if it's a good thing to give up even more information to these companies. People talk about privacy a lot, but at a flick of a switch, they're like, you know what, let me give you my passport so you know who I am, you can track down these racist guys. There's definitely a compromise to be had there, but it's an interesting one. I think anonymity, not knowing who's saying what. The bigger problem is that you can't hold them accountable. I think if you did use verification ID to verify who's who, and that information was just stored somewhere that not accessed until it's asked for or used by the police, assuming the police are good and they don't just kill black people for no reason, I can understand why that would be useful. But again, it's a very tight line. So anonymity, I'm putting it as a con, because I think people, when you're allowed to act with in a position where there are no consequences, that allows you to behave in different ways, either good or bad, but not necessarily in a way that benefits the society at large. And that's something that's very scary, especially right now, again, in the world of missing penalties and racism. So that's one of the cons of social media. The other cons I have, information paralysis, where there's too much going on, comparing, how people compare to each other, and the perception. I'm going to start with talking about perception, because like, the way we perceive things is like, usually in real life, kind of what you see is what you get. If you see someone and they're being an idiot, you can be like, okay, this guy's probably an idiot. But on social media, if you see Kim Kardashian looking like incredible, you don't actually know if she looks like that in real life. I mean, maybe Kim K is a bad example because we've seen a lot of her just. Well, I don't follow any of these like women or models or Kim Kardashian, but I imagine on these shows and stuff, you have a bit more of an idea of what they are like, maybe ish. I don't know, but the fact of the matter is, the way you perceive things on social media is very, very strange, because again, what you see isn't necessarily what you get anymore. Not even to do with like anonymity or editing, social media, makeup, whatever it may be. It's like literally you just don't know. This might not even be that person sending that. If you're on Twitter, you don't even know if that's that person tweeting it. You can read like Ryan Reynolds' Twitter, and it could just be some PR agency in Peru, for all I know. Like, I don't know what he's saying or what's going on, who's posting this. And the way you perceive things nowadays is very, very strange, because I think it's, if you're a kid and you're a young impressionable person, which we'll talk about a bit more later in the video, but it's like social media is typically targeted at like millennials and younger people. And if you don't really know how to navigate that, if you don't actually know that, oh, this might be edited, that can very, in many ways, change how you perceive the world at large around you, let alone just the picture itself or the tweet itself. And that's definitely an interesting trade-off, something to observe in real life. It's obviously very nuanced, like there's a lot going on all the time, but the way our perception has changed and how we value things nowadays is very, very interesting. Our value systems in general are quite unique and strange. Again, especially like if you're, as I was saying, like a young impressionable child, and you're seeing like, I don't know, if you're a young girl and you're seeing Kim Kardashian or these models looking in certain ways, you might be like, oh, she's beautiful, I want to look like that. And then you don't actually realise that, oh, I can't look like that. I literally can't, because it's edited and it's fake. But we start to compare ourselves now, which isn't necessarily healthy. And that could be, that's our next con. The fact that people compare themselves a lot to social media. That, again, similar to everything so far, it can be perceived as a pro as well. Like if you're on social media, if you're on LinkedIn, I might see my friend just got an internship at Google, and I'm like, oh man, I've got to be working harder. I can get, if he can do it, I can do it. I've got to work harder. Someone else might see the exact same post and react completely differently. They might be like, he's working at Google, but I got rejected from everywhere. I'm not good enough. I don't feel good about myself anymore. And the way people react to that is very personal, so it's hard to put as a pro or a con. To me personally, it's a good thing to see what people are doing, because it encourages me. But I appreciate that it takes a certain level of like mental resilience and mental toughness to not to be proud of your friends. You can be proud of your friends either way if you perceive it in that way, but to not take that out on yourself, to not personalize it, to not make it about you, is not easy in many ways, especially if you've grown up and you've always been treated a certain way, or you've always seen things a certain way. It can be hard to overcome that in social media, even if it's just you in general. So it's a very interesting one. Comparing yourself is something that's difficult, and that comes from abundance. If you're always seeing things, before, if you're in a community, like literally everyone in your space is kind of the same. You kind of have the same people, look kind of the same, do kind of the same things, and that's not even like an attack or like a guess either. That's literally just down to evolution. Like there's a reason why Africa is kind of like full of black people, right? Because it's like it's on the equator. We get more sunlight, therefore you need more melanin to protect yourself more from the UV rays of the sun. That's evolution exists. Biological changes exist. Environmental developments are real things, and there's a reason why back in the day, like these tribes were quite similar. They had a similar gene pool. Nowadays, now you have social media, you can see what people are doing in Peru, Denmark, Bangladesh. You can see what's going on around the world, and suddenly the grass isn't so green where you are anymore. It's like, maybe I want to be in LA, maybe I want to be in Florida, maybe I want to be in Tokyo in Japan. I don't want to be in the UK anymore. And that abundance has allowed you to compare yourself, has allowed you to view the world in a way that isn't necessarily healthy for everyone, and that isn't necessarily manageable if you don't know how to navigate a world of information paralysis, which is our final con, which is literally the idea that there's just too much information. Information paralysis is a word that I actually came across from, not even from social media, it was from, not LinkedIn, from Netflix. Well, I think my friend was around and we're like, let's put on a show. And I went to Netflix. I'm like, I don't know what to watch. I've got my list. I've got my continue watching. I've got top comedy shows. I've got top UK shows. I've got the top 10 whatever. I don't know what to watch. I'm just sitting here confused. I'm baffed. There's so much information where it's like, you end up having so much going on. You feel paralyzed because you're kind of just sitting there like, I don't know. Should we go to Disney Plus instead? I legit just didn't know what to do. And I was confused. I'm like, I started to feel like that more and more frequently these days. I'm starting to be a bit more confused and stifled What is that? And it turns out it actually is a thing called information paralysis. And it's like you just don't know. You just don't know what to do. And even beyond that, if you want to be a bit more nuanced and a bit more, clever about it, even if you do kind of know what you want, you don't actually know what's real, what's right, what's fake news. How do you separate the good from the bad? Netflix used to have the star system, I think, like 1 to 5 stars. Now it's thumbs up or thumbs down, and it's like 98% a match. Based on what? I don't know if I'm gonna like Bridesmaids. I don't even know. I've never been to a wedding in my life. I don't know what's going on here. So it's always been an interesting trade off of seeing like all this information and trying to understand like what's good, what's bad, what do you click on, what don't you click on, what to watch, what to talk to, who to follow, what r/thread do I want to be in, and all this stuff is just can be paralyzing, and that's why I see it as a con in this case. So now we can talk about the cons of social media. Let's talk now a bit about the pros, in a bit more of a uplifting sense. 'Cause I think we've been quite a downer so far. So the pros I've got is connectivity, networking, accessibility, and abundance. And what they all mean is like connectivity, for example, is the fact that you can talk to literally anyone, anywhere, anytime, whenever you want, whenever they're available. Like I've recently stumbled across this thing called Lunch Club. I'm not going to go into it now, but Lunch Club is like, it's kind of like Tinder, but for entrepreneurs. You just go on it, you say like, I want to meet someone at 7 p.m. on Friday, and then boom, 7 p.m. you have an appointment with Lisa Cerante. I just made up a name, but some person who's like in a space that you're interested in, and you just talk, you just chat. And there are so many ways you can literally just connect with anyone, anywhere, so easily, so carelessly. You don't even need to think about it anymore. Back in the days, I want to talk to this girl, I don't know how. Nowadays, you say, yo, what you saying? WYS. You don't even have to use words anymore, just abbreviations. WYS, WUU2, NMU. Like the world's changed so many ways now, as far as connecting is concerned, it's so easy now, and that's such a big benefit, because especially right now with lockdown, you can't go outside. You don't need to go outside anymore. You can just go online again. WUU2. And that's something that's quite powerful. That's obviously a massive pro. Even like streamlining that a little bit, narrowing that down, because connectivity in general doesn't really mean anything. It's like, yeah, I can talk to anyone, but why do I want to talk to anyone? Like networking is even more of a specific variation of that, because you can now speak to people that you actually like, people that actually like you, that you would not have met otherwise. Like I've met people in like Atlanta in America. I know people in like Tel Aviv in Israel. I know people from around the world that I've never been to. I've never been to Israel. I've never been to America. I've never been out. Well, actually, no, I've been to America like as a kid, but like this version of me, I haven't been anywhere bar like Singapore. I don't know people like that, but because of the social media, because of the internet, I've been, I now have access to these people. I've now found ways to network with people from all around the world that I like, that I don't like, that have similar interests to me, that can teach me new things. And that's something that's obviously, again, massive pro. The idea of meeting new people isn't exclusive to social media, but again, what makes it specifically powerful is the fact that you wouldn't have done it otherwise. You wouldn't have been able to go to other parts of the world otherwise to know these people, to talk to these people from around the world. I actually went on holiday, met, I've been talking to this girl, and we still talk 2 years later from Singapore. I haven't been there since. But the fact that we can just do that in this world is like so crazy. I mean, I guess pen pals have always kind of been a thing, but now I can do it in seconds. There's no need to like send a letter across the world. I can just send a message and we're kind of all sorted. But yeah, more importantly, what that's done is like I mentioned, like I went on holiday and found someone. Like I'm 23 years old, but back then I was 21. You can just go around, do things just like that. There's no need to sign up to this course, or I mean, I guess you are signing up to social media. We're not paying anything. There's no hurdles. It's accessible. Anyone can do it. All you need is a phone or a laptop, I guess, or even an internet cafe. All you need is access to the internet. That's it. And suddenly you're connected. You're part of this link. You're another node in the network. And the whole point of like being accessible and that having this thing be so accessible to people, even though I admit only parts of the world do have it. There are obviously a lot of people around the world that don't have access to the internet or to social media, which is something that should be worked on. I think tech for good, the ethics of engineering. I'm actually surprised that there's no module called ethical engineering on my course, because you'd think in 2021 we'd be more aware of the fact that, oh crap, half of the world actually can't get online, not through their own choice, but literally because they just don't have the financial means to do that, or because some of these satellites are just so expensive. Shout out to SpaceX for making it a lot cheaper, but we'll see how the future evolves. Knowing that with the information, but it's crazy how a lot of the world actually aren't online. A lot of what I've said so far is, internet, you can talk to anyone, anywhere, whenever you want. But the fact of the matter is, you can talk to like half of the world, half like when they want, because people still get aired. But it's an interesting development at least. At least it's kind of some of us, that there is at least a network that exists that allows people to talk, which is constantly expanding. We'll just have to see how quickly and how fairly that technology is divvied up for other people. Another point on accessibility is that you never have to miss anything. Like back in the day, you had the news at certain times, in morning, afternoon, night news. If you miss the news, you don't really know what went on in that day. Nowadays, I can like go on Twitter right now and see what's going on in Bangladesh. I don't know why I keep saying Bangladesh. I guess shout out to Samir. But yeah, let me go onto Twitter right now. We've got Ugandan weightlifter reported missing in Osaka before Tokyo Olympics. What? Oh, not more racist news. Okay, that's actually really sad. I don't want to read that now. But the fact of the matter is I can see everything that's going on anywhere. Like, I'm not in Tokyo, obviously. I'm in Bristol. But I know that someone's gone missing in Tokyo because of social media. And having the access to information is very, very powerful. Even if you miss it, again, you can miss it live and just catch up later on because the feed, the timeline is always going to be there. So that's a good pro. Even though it's constantly sharing bad news, it's still generally a good thing. So the last pro, obviously I could have gone on all day and just listed a bunch of pros and cons, but for the sake of this video, this is going to be the last pro. And the last positive thing about social media is the fact that it's abundant. Abundance is powerful. And I know people are going to be like, but you just said abundance is a bad thing because you can compare yourself to people. But I'm also using it here, specifically abundance itself, as a positive, because it's no longer a scene where you have just one type of people here, one demographic here. It's hard to find your tribe. The fact that it's abundant and that everyone has it, that it's accessible to everyone, well again, everyone in quotation marks, but it's people are there. You no longer have to feel left out. You can go onto Reddit and just type in r/black people, r/football, r/Arsenal, and the tribes are already there. The communities already exist. And abundance is a good thing in this sense because it means that, again, you don't have to struggle. You don't have to find your people. They are already there. Everyone who has access to the internet is on social media. And that means that you don't need to, again, there's no need to struggle. People are there. They're abundant. All you got to do is log in and find them. But those are kind of like my key, not takeaways per se, just my pros and cons. But like, what's my actual take? What do I actually think about social media? What's my perspective on it? This is my opinion corner. If you have your own opinions, find a corner down below in the comments and get at me and we'll have a discussion. But for the sake of this video, for the sake of my, Jordan's opinion corner, what's my take on social media? My honest take is that social media is neither good nor bad, and I think anyone that says it is either good or bad, like, do some more reading. Just think first before you speak, because social media fundamentally might as well be a hammer or a drill. It's a tool. It does things. It's not intrinsically good or bad. It doesn't tell you what to do. Maybe the algorithm is quite bad, but that's made by the people. We made algorithms to do things in certain ways, to make more money, to show you this and to show you that. You can't blame the tool for that. You can blame the way it's used. And that's my main thing. Like, the biggest problem with social media isn't the social media, it's the people behind it. And not just the people behind it. I don't even have a problem with the guys who own Facebook or whatever, like Zuckerberg. The problem I have, if anything, is the governments and our parents. And let me explain to you why that's the case. So when it comes down to, before I even differentiate the two, the reason why I use both of those people in general is because parents or guardians and governments, those are the so-called leaders, right? They're in charge. They're the ones who have the power to do, either to the government, in the government's case, they have the power to like shut down media or like regulate them or legislate in whatever way. Parents, on the other hand, have the power to give your kids, like, your kid doesn't need to be online, and they don't need to have a phone at 11 years old. That's up to you to give them that phone, right? And these are the two parties with the most power, the parents and the governments, and those are the people that kind of let us down in many ways, in the sense that social media, these tech companies shouldn't have been allowed to be this powerful. I was like, 13 years old when Facebook came out in 2011 or whatever. I was born in 98, so I had no control over that. I had no control over what Zuckerberg did, who he spoke to, what deals he made. I had no control over what phone my parents bought me, what apps. Well, to be fair, I chose to download said apps. But I was young and impressionable. I didn't know what I was getting into when I downloaded Snapchat for the first time, or Instagram for the first time in 2013 or whatever. Facebook. I didn't know what I was getting into. I just saw it. My friends said it was cool. They said, get on Facebook. I said, Mom, can I do it? She said, yeah. It's not up to, it shouldn't have been up to me or to any young person to understand what's good or bad. It's up to your parents to be like, Facebook, Snapchat, what's that all about? Do the research. Be like, oh, hell no. You're way too young. It literally says you have to be 13. Well, to be fair, I was 13 at the time. But most of these apps literally say you have to be a certain age to get on there. And there are kids half that age. I've seen parents, not my parents, I've seen adults making accounts for their kids before they're even born, posting baby pictures, due in 3 weeks. What are you doing? What sort of world are you preparing your child for if they're already on social media? They didn't even know. They hadn't even given the choice to do that. These same people are like, pro life, no abortions. But yeah, but also here's social media. Here's a horrible world. Here's student debt. Here's all of that. I'm not talking on abortions. I'm just saying how it's crazy how the way people, what we tolerate and what we don't tolerate, what's okay, what's not okay. And again, my problem with social media, that it stems from that. It stems from the way these tools have been managed, because poor management, poor leadership has led, well, not poor leadership, just poor management has led to these tools becoming, from the government's perspective, they've been so powerful. These tech companies have become so big that, it's so too big to fail. Facebook has literally controlled elections. The Cambridge Analytica scandal, they can literally decide who's going to be the president. What news are you going to see? Where in the world, like these algorithms are so powerful now that, again, they can't even, it's so hard to regulate against them, to legislate against them. You see people tweeting stuff. These MPs can be silenced. So then Donald Trump was literally taking off of social media. That's not to say that I disagree with that, but it's crazy the fact that social media have this much power that they can literally go to the president of the United States, who's not president anymore, but literally while he was in charge, and say, you know what, we don't care what you have to say. We're only going to show articles from these types of people, the people that we like. And again, the idea is that these social media platforms are run by some extent by the people. You can kind of choose who you follow, what community you find yourself in. But if Twitter is like banning all the concern, I don't actually know if this is true. I don't actually believe a lot of what I take the world as I take it in real time. But it's very easy for Facebook to say, you know what, we don't care about any leftists or any rightists or any of these people. Censorship is a very, very real thing, and it's at a point now where censorship isn't being controlled by a person anymore. It's being controlled by an algorithm, which could, it can be good or bad. I don't think it's intrinsically good or bad. I think it's just a tool that can be used in either way, and the way we handle it, the way we manage it, is what determines how it's perceived. I think at the moment I can understand how it's perceived as a bad thing because it's been managed so poorly. I see a lot of tweets from Zara Sultana. How old is this? But 27. Hey! I've been online too long. I've been online too long. let me not send any DMs today. Whoa, my laptop's talking to me now. But yeah, I'm not. Chill. Actually, no. When I typed in her name, I saw an article that seemed quite interesting. So we're gonna come back to that in a second. But the point is, the way things have been managed is the main problem with social media. I talked about governments now. They didn't really regulate or legislate against it quickly enough. When it comes to our parents, it's more about letting your kids on and stuff in the first place, and that's not just social media. That's the internet at large. Like your 14-year-old son didn't just come home one day with a PS4 and Call of Duty and a controller and HDMI cables and a TV for their room. Like, you bought that stuff for them. You are the reason why they're doing the things they're doing. It's not fair for you to go to your kids. I often see my parents often watch, what's it called? Good Morning Britain, I think. And whenever I see them watching it, all the people are talking about on the show is, kids today, millennials, social media, football. It's all these adults saying how bad kids are. And I'm like, who raised these kids? Did these kids just show up one day and the social media just like pull up, here you go, random 14-year-old kid, here's a smartphone and Twitter. Like, these things didn't just come out of nowhere. A lot of these things, social media is a bit different because to some extent kids, if you buy them a phone for, to keep tabs on them, see where they are, to make sure they're safe, they can then on their own download Twitter and these apps. There is quite limited control you have over a smartphone as a parent. But let's not act like these things just happen overnight and that came out of nowhere. Whoa. But yeah, let's not act like these things came out of nowhere overnight and you have no control over them. In many ways, we can control the narrative here, but there's no reason for your kids to be online. There's no reason for these tech companies to be so powerful. If the government had acted sooner, if our parents had taken more care, concern, and consideration when it came to like research and what is Snapchat, what does POS mean, parent over shoulder, how does Twitter work, we wouldn't be in this situation, we wouldn't be in this mess that we find ourselves in. Like, a lot of these problems, I'd always say it's not just to do with social media, but in general in society. One of the biggest problems that I've observed in society is poor leadership. Because what that means, what leadership does to you, is it messes up, it's a generational issue. If there are no leaders, it's not like, it doesn't just affect one person or one tribe, it affects literally everyone after them as well. And that's something that we've observed over time, and it's something that's very, very difficult to fix. But again, it's very interesting to see how you know, how we react to social media, like, oh, kids are doing this, kids are doing that. It's like, who raised these kids? Why are these kids here in the first place? Most of these apps say you have to be like 13, 14, 15, 16. So why are they there? Why aren't you controlling that? I'm not really on either camp. You know, I've seen a lot of people say when it comes to anonymity with social media, I think I might have said this earlier, because I had literally recorded this whole video, and then I realized the microphone was turned off, so none of my audio was picked up. So I don't know if I'm saying this again for the first time, or if I said it earlier, but we have this whole narrative right now of like identification, verification, and passports and ID, ECT, you know, ETC. But it's like, I don't even know if that's the right approach. Like, do we really want to be giving them more information and more data and sacrificing more, you know, having less privacy? The way the government are talking right now, the things that they want to do, I don't like. You should have legislated against this years ago. You should have done so many things that should have been fixed from such a long time ago. And we're now at such a tough spot where there isn't really a right choice. There's not really a right way. You know, you've seen shows like The Social Dilemma, and these kids, again, the young generation who didn't really know what they were getting into when they got these apps. The parents didn't really tell them. They didn't really understand that the apps didn't tell them either. If you've grown up on social media, I can understand why it's hard for some kids to differentiate between reality and, you know, social media. You know, if you get less likes, am I less popular? Am I less cool if I get less likes? If this picture's at this angle, am I going to be prettier? Like, all these different things. Like, it's stupid. Fundamentally, it's just very, very stupid. And they're not wrong to think that, because I get it. I understand how numerically, if you're getting less likes, you can interpret that. Like, it's a way to quantify behavior, I guess. It's a quantifiable asset versus, like, if someone just says, oh, you look good today, that doesn't mean much quantifiably. Like, yes, it's good to hear someone say you look good, but if you is one person saying you look good more valuable than getting 50,000 likes? I don't know. To me, I don't care either way what people think. But I can understand how your perception is skewed based on the numbers, based on the social media. And it's hard to kind of differentiate yourself from that, especially if you've grown up in an environment where TikTok is thriving and likes are thriving. It's hard to be like, I don't care about likes, but also all my friends get more likes than me. Like, it's hard to differentiate between the two. And I think, again, that comes down to better leadership. If you're a parent, you've got to be reminding your son or daughter, look, you're beautiful. It doesn't matter what these likes say. You're you. And even if you're not you, even if the likes are important, appreciate that this is just a moment in time. This is just one picture. At some point, you're going to go to uni or college or get a job or meet your husband or wife, and life changes through time. What you see right now doesn't even mean anything. You can be getting 1 billion likes today, but tomorrow you could be irrelevant in the social media world, let alone in the real world where things actually happen to you in real time instead of just like one picture a week or whatever. So appreciate that time evolves and things happen. If necessary, you know what? This prop, I'm no longer a fan of this prop. I'm now going to put this not official sponsor on the desk. And the reason why I've got a shaver here is because we're going to start shaving minutes off of our screen time, ladies and gentlemen. Let me actually go and check, while we're here, let me check my screen time. But yeah, shaving time off of our screen on time, including my laptop actually. I don't know why this is still open. And we're going to try our very hardest to appreciate the differences, again, between social media and reality. Let's start living in the real world. Let's get out of our hands, get out of our heads, stand up, go for walks, kick balls, go on dates, as per the last video. Hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.